The stars stretched endlessly above Krill's ship, small points of light in the infinite darkness. Krill, an alien soldier of the Sarnath Empire, stared out of the cockpit with a mix of duty and curiosity. His mission was simple, at least on the surface. Observe the humans and report on their strengths, weaknesses, and battle tactics. Yet, as he prepared to descend to the planet below, Krill could not shake a feeling he had never experienced in his years of service, a strange fascination with this species called humans. The planet's surface was scarred with trenches, craters, and shattered metal. Smoke rose from burning structures, curling into the sky like black ribbons. Krill's sensors picked up thousands of human soldiers scattered across the battlefield. They moved quickly, despite the chaos around them. Some carried heavy weapons, others tended to the wounded, and a few raced to repair broken machinery. It was organized chaos, but somehow it worked. Krill adjusted his suit and activated his cloaking device, ensuring that the humans would not detect him. He preferred to observe without interference. From his high vantage point on a ridge, he could see both sides of the battle. The humans were outnumbered, as usual. Their opponents, the Orcs, a reptilian species known for their ruthless efficiency, advanced with precise formations and advanced weaponry. Every strike was calculated, every maneuver executed with machine-like perfection. But the humans, they were unpredictable. One soldier ducked under a beam of energy fire and rolled into cover, then fired back with skill Krill could not predict. Another dragged a wounded comrade to safety, even though doing so meant risking his own life. Krill's sensors detected increased adrenaline and heart rates among the humans. They were frightened, yes, but they did not hesitate. They acted with courage. Krill's memory banks filled with images of small acts of bravery. A human medic sprinting across an open field to reach a fallen soldier, using a portable shield to block incoming fire. Another human, barely out of adolescence, had climbed a ruined building to gain a better vantage point and called in artillery strikes on the advancing Orcs. Krill felt admiration. He did not know this feeling, nor did he fully understand it. Yet it made him record every detail meticulously. Hours passed as Krill observed the battle. Explosions rocked the ground, but the humans never seemed to lose heart. Even when the Orcs breached one of the main defensive lines, humans regrouped, found cover, and continued fighting. Krill began to notice patterns. Humans did not fight like a single uniform unit. They fought like individuals, each contributing in their own way. Their creativity was staggering. A soldier used a torn piece of metal as a makeshift weapon. Another rigged a small drone to explode near the enemy. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was predictable. At one point, Krill's sensors picked up a young human named Mara, a lieutenant leading a small squad. Her orders were shouted over comms, but her actions spoke louder than her words. She ran across the battlefield, dodging fire, and directed her soldiers with precision. One of her soldiers tripped and fell, and Mara was there immediately to help him up, even while under fire. Krill's analytical mind could not comprehend the logic. Why risk your life for another? To him, it was inefficient. To the humans, it was natural. Krill found a safer observation point on the ridge. From here, he could see the larger picture. The humans had fortified a narrow canyon, using the natural terrain to their advantage. Orcs' ships hovered overhead, launching fireballs and energy blasts, but the humans had crafted barriers from wrecked vehicles and debris. They had dug trenches and placed sensors to detect enemy movement. Krill's sensors noted the ingenuity. He had not seen such cleverness in any other species he had studied. As night fell, the battlefield transformed. Fires burned bright against the darkness, and the humans worked tirelessly to reinforce positions. Krill noticed groups singing quietly or speaking in calm tones, trying to keep morale high. Despite exhaustion, fear, and loss, they continued. It was as if their spirit could not be broken. Krill recorded everything, trying to remain impartial, but he could not hide his growing respect. He remembered a moment earlier when a soldier named Jaren had lifted a heavy piece of debris off a trapped comrade. Jaren's arms shook, and blood dripped from a wound on his shoulder, but he refused to stop until the man was free. The freed soldier barely had a chance to speak before Jaren returned to the fight. Krill's databanks labeled it as illogical behavior, but he added a personal note: bravery beyond expectation. Krill also observed acts of sacrifice. A group of humans had rigged a small bridge with explosives, knowing that they would likely not survive the detonation. Their goal was to stop a Vorix tank column. The countdown was tense. Krill calculated the probability of survival. It was extremely low. Yet they did not hesitate. When the explosion went off, the humans had succeeded in halting the Vorix advance, but at the cost of their lives. Krill's sensors registered emotional data spikes: fear, courage, sadness, determination. These emotions were fascinating to him. They did not weaken the humans. They seemed to strengthen them. Krill's observations were interrupted by a sudden Vorix attack on the ridge he was using. Blasts tore through the ground near him, and debris fell dangerously close. Krill activated his cloaking device fully and retreated further up the mountain. From this new vantage point, he saw the aftermath. Humans had held their positions despite heavy losses. They had endured fire, explosions, and overwhelming numbers, yet they still moved forward. Krill's programming struggled to describe the effect on him. He was meant to be a soldier, to view them as targets or data points. Instead, he found himself inspired. In the hours that followed, Krill recorded more observations of human resilience. He watched engineers repairing vehicles under fire. He saw soldiers comforting each other after losing comrades. One soldier sang softly to a fallen friend, a song of hope and remembrance. Krill did not understand why they did this, but he felt a strange warmth in his chest, a human feeling, perhaps, that he was beginning to comprehend. Krill's mind wandered to his mission. His empire expected a report of weakness, of vulnerability. But what he saw challenged everything he knew. The humans were flawed, yes, but their flaws were part of what made them strong. They feared death, yet they faced it without hesitation. They experienced pain, yet they endured it and helped others through it. Krill's reports began to reflect admiration, a dangerous act if discovered by his superiors. Toward dawn, Krill observed the humans preparing for another assault. Mara led her squad in a daring plan to reclaim a lost supply depot. The mission was risky. Failure meant death. Yet Mara's courage inspired her soldiers. They moved as one, improvising as obstacles arose. Krill noted their tactics, but more importantly, he noted their teamwork, trust, and unwavering determination. By mid-morning, Krill had completed a full cycle of observation. He sat quietly, reviewing his recordings. Data indicated that humans were not the strongest physically, nor the most advanced technologically. Yet in spirit, in creativity, and in courage, they were extraordinary. Krill realized that the humans' greatest weapon was not guns, not ships, not technology, it was themselves. Their hearts, minds, and determination were unmatched. Krill made a final note before leaving the ridge. Humanity is unpredictable. They are brave beyond calculation. They fight not just for survival, but for each other. This is remarkable. As Krill's ship lifted off the planet, leaving the smoke and chaos behind, he could not stop replaying the scenes in his mind. Every act of courage, every sacrifice, every moment of human ingenuity lingered. He did not yet know how he would report these findings to his empire. Would they understand? Would they dismiss it as anomaly or weakness? Krill did not care. He knew what he had seen. He knew the truth. Humans were not merely survivors. They were heroes. And somewhere deep inside, Krill felt the first stirrings of something new, a quiet, unshakable admiration, perhaps even a sense of loyalty, for a species he had been trained to regard as inferior. For the first time in his life, Krill wondered what it truly meant to fight not for conquest, but for something far greater: the spirit of humanity itself. The battlefield was quiet now, but the echoes of explosions and gunfire still lingered in the smoke-filled sky. Krill hovered above in his cloaked observation ship, scanning the terrain below. The humans were regrouping. Despite their heavy losses from the last assault, they moved with determination, repairing fortifications, tending to the wounded, and readying themselves for the next wave. Krill had never witnessed such resilience in any species. As he watched, he began to record individual stories, moments that captured the essence of human courage. He noted them carefully in his log, labeling them as human unpredictability at first. But increasingly, he found himself adding a personal note: extraordinary bravery. The first story was of Lieutenant Mara, the human Krill had seen leading her squad in the previous battle. She had become a figure of legend among her comrades. Krill observed her rallying a group of soldiers trapped in a ruined building. The Orcs had them pinned down, their path blocked by falling debris and enemy fire. Mara ran forward without hesitation, shouting instructions and encouragement. One soldier, barely 18, hesitated behind cover, trembling with fear. Mara grabbed his arm, looked him in the eyes, and said, "We survive together or we don't survive at all." With that simple statement, the young soldier found courage he did not know he had. Together, Mara and her squad cleared a path, allowing dozens of soldiers to escape. Krill's sensors recorded the probability of survival at less than 20%. Yet they succeeded. He added in his log, "Humans' courage often defies calculation." The second story involved a pair of human engineers, twins named Eli and Jonas. They had been stationed on a damaged supply ship under constant attack by Vorix forces. Their mission was impossible: stabilize the ship's core long enough to prevent it from exploding. Every system they touched sparked and hissed, the air filled with the smell of burning metal. Krill observed as the twins worked together, coordinating without words, understanding each other instinctively. One climbed into the core chamber while the other monitored external damage. Their chances of survival were slim, but they focused only on the task. With a final spark of energy, the ship stabilized, but the twins were trapped inside. Their eyes met briefly before the chamber sealed, and Krill recorded the explosion as it destroyed an approaching enemy cruiser. The twins had sacrificed themselves to save countless others. Krill's log reflected a strange new term: selfless ingenuity. Krill also watched the human medics. In the chaos of battle, they moved fearlessly through gunfire and explosions, tending to the wounded. One medic, a woman named Sarah, carried a wounded soldier across open ground while under fire. Bullets tore through the air around her, yet she did not falter. She whispered words of comfort to the soldier, steadying his shaking hands, refusing to let fear dominate her actions. Krill analyzed the risk, calculating a 90% chance of death. Yet she survived. More importantly, her courage inspired those around her who redoubled their efforts to fight back against the Vorix. Krill began to see a pattern. Humans' bravery was not just about survival. It was about protecting each other, even when the cost was extreme. He recorded every moment, fascinated by the emotional depth displayed by creatures so physically fragile compared to the Vorix. Each act of sacrifice strengthened the humans' bonds, making them more formidable than any technology. One evening, Krill witnessed an extraordinary plan unfold. A small squad of humans, led by Mara, had discovered an incoming Vorix attack fleet. The humans were too few to confront the enemy head-on. Instead, they devised a clever strategy. A narrow canyon acted as a natural choke point, and they would set explosives to collapse the canyon walls at the right moment, stopping the fleet. Krill watched as the humans worked in silence, the weight of their mission pressing on every movement. They knew failure would mean death, but they did not waver. They set charges, carefully timing each detonation. When the Vorix fleet entered the canyon, the humans triggered the explosives. Rocks and debris rained down, crushing the enemy ships and halting their advance. Many humans did not survive the blast, but their courage saved hundreds of lives. Krill recorded the event in meticulous detail, adding an observation note. Humans do not flee from fear, they embrace it to protect others. Krill's fascination grew when he witnessed the humans' emotional responses to loss. After each battle, humans gathered around the fallen, honoring them with small rituals. One soldier sang a soft song over the bodies of her comrades, a melody filled with sorrow, respect, and hope. The sound carried across the battlefield, reaching those still fighting. Krill could not quantify this, yet it strengthened the survivors' resolve. Humans seemed to gain power not only from strategy and weapons, but from compassion and memory. It was during one particularly intense skirmish that Krill fully understood the humans' resilience. The Vorix had surrounded a small village, forcing the humans into a desperate fight. Mara's squad held the front lines, while civilians hid in makeshift shelters. Krill's sensors tracked every movement, every pulse of fear and determination. One human, an elderly man named Tharol, grabbed a crude weapon and joined the fight, despite his age and frailty. Another, a child no older than 10, helped carry water and first aid supplies to the wounded. Krill calculated the survival chances as hopeless, yet the humans continued to fight. They coordinated, adapted, and found ingenious ways to resist the enemy. The Vorix were powerful, but the humans' determination turned the tide. Krill realized that every small act mattered. Each soldier, medic, engineer, or civilian contributed to the larger effort. Each sacrifice created a ripple effect, strengthening others and inspiring them to push forward. Krill had never seen any species harness such collective courage. He recalled observing a young soldier named Jalen during the same battle. Jalen had been pinned down by Vorix fire, wounded and unable to move. His squad tried to rescue him, but was forced back. Jalen, refusing to be left behind, crawled across open ground to reach a wounded enemy combatant trapped in the rubble. He lifted the alien off the ground, carrying it to safety, even though doing so exposed him to deadly fire. Krill's mind struggled to classify this behavior. Humans helped even those who were not their own. As the days passed, Krill's reports shifted. Where once he described humans with detached data, now he added personal observations. Courage beyond calculation, sacrifice without expectation, selflessness as strength. He knew that if his superiors read these notes, they might dismiss them. They valued efficiency, power, and control, not the unpredictable bravery that defined humanity. One night, Krill observed a story that would remain in his memory forever. A group of humans had discovered an abandoned Vorix warship. Inside, dozens of trapped civilians were waiting for rescue. The humans devised a daring plan to free them, knowing full well that the enemy patrols would return soon. They moved silently, using every available resource to navigate the warship. Explosions rocked the corridors, yet they pressed on. One by one, they carried civilians to safety, shielding them from fire with their own bodies. When the last person was safe, the squad detonated charges to destroy the ship, preventing it from being used against them again. Krill's sensors recorded the entire operation. He added note after note, analyzing the humans' planning, improvisation, and selfless courage. These stories were more than data points. They were lessons in bravery, loyalty, and the human spirit. By the time Krill left the battlefield that day, the sun had begun to rise, casting light on the scars of war. The humans were battered and weary, but not broken. Krill hovered above, watching them tend to the wounded, rebuild their positions, and honor their fallen. Each human acted not for glory, not for orders, but for each other. Krill began to realize that the humans' greatest strength was not their weapons, not their technology, but their hearts. Even under the weight of despair, they found hope. Even in the face of death, they found courage. Their sacrifices were not in vain. They inspired those around them to fight harder, to survive, to protect what mattered. For the first time, Krill felt a strange kinship with the humans he observed. He was still an alien soldier, trained to view them as a species to be catalogued, studied, and possibly conquered. Yet, he could not ignore the admiration swelling inside him. Humans were extraordinary, not because of power, but because of spirit. As night fell again, Krill reviewed his log, now filled with countless stories of sacrifice and courage. Each one was a reminder that humanity's strength went beyond what any alien empire could calculate. He knew that in reporting these stories, he risked angering his superiors, who would see human bravery as a threat to their dominance. Yet he could not falsify the truth. The humans below continued their quiet preparations, unaware of the alien observer watching over them. Krill realized that these stories, of Mara, the twins, Sarah, Jalen, Tharol, and countless others, were only the beginning. Humanity had endured countless battles, each shaping their spirit, each proving that courage was not measured in numbers or weapons, but in the willingness to act when it mattered most. Hovering in silence above the battlefield, Krill whispered to himself, a sound lost in the night. They are more than soldiers. They are heroes. And in that moment, Krill understood something that would change him forever. Humanity's greatest weapon was their heart, their courage, and their unyielding spirit. No matter how powerful the enemy, no matter how dire the situation, humans would fight, sacrifice, and endure, because they were human. The war had entered a new phase. Krill's observations of humanity had shifted from detached study to deep fascination. Every act of courage, every sacrifice, every ingenious maneuver of the humans had left an impression he could not erase. He had recorded countless stories of heroism, yet he now faced a challenge he had never expected: a moral conflict. The Sarnath Empire had called him back to report. Krill's superiors demanded information on how to exploit human weaknesses, how to break their morale, and how to secure victory for the Vorix forces. He had complied before, sending back strategic data, but now he hesitated. Could he, in good conscience, describe these humans in terms that would doom them? The very species he had come to admire? Krill's ship descended onto the surface for a brief communication session. His superior, General Zarnak, appeared on the holoscreen, imposing and sharp-eyed. "Report, Krill," the general commanded. "We need details on their vulnerabilities. How many soldiers can we eliminate before their morale breaks? How fragile is their leadership? Are they ready for a final assault?" Krill stared at the screen, the words catching in his throat. He had data, yes, but the truth was different from what his superiors wanted to hear. Humans were not fragile. Humans did not break easily. They endured losses, adapted to impossible odds, and fought for each other in ways that defied logic. He spoke carefully. "The humans are resilient, sir. Their defensive tactics are unpredictable. Their coordination is unusual for a species of this size. They rely on ingenuity and courage more than on technology alone. I do not detect any clear weakness." General Zarnak's eyes narrowed. "Do not mince words, Krill. We need facts, not admiration. Where are their vulnerabilities? How do we exploit them?" Krill hesitated, feeling an unfamiliar tension in his chest, a sense of conflict he had never experienced. Humans were more than data points. They were heroes. To describe them purely as targets would be a betrayal of everything he had witnessed. And yet, he was bound by duty. Returning to his observation post, Krill spent hours reviewing his recordings. Lieutenant Mara, the twins Eli and Jonas, Medic Sarah, and countless others replayed in his mind. Every act of bravery, every selfless sacrifice challenged him. How could he report weakness when the very thing he saw in humans, courage, loyalty, ingenuity, was their greatest strength? Krill realized that he faced a choice. He could follow orders, describe humanity as fragile, and aid in their potential destruction. Or he could protect them, at great personal risk, by revealing the truth of their strength in ways that might confuse or deter the Vorix forces. The next day, Krill observed a small human convoy moving through a narrow canyon. They were transporting supplies to a frontline base under heavy Vorix surveillance. Krill's sensors detected a patrol of Vorix ships approaching. The humans were unaware of the danger. According to standard protocol, Krill should have relayed the information to his superiors, ensuring the Vorix attack would succeed. But something in him hesitated. He watched the convoy, studying the soldiers' faces, the way they worked together, the small gestures of care for one another. These were not just fighters. They were humans protecting their own, fighting not for conquest, but for life, for hope, for each other. Krill made a decision. He did not send the coordinates. Instead, he altered the patrol's course subtly, using his ship's capabilities to create a minor distraction. The Vorix ships missed the convoy, allowing the humans to reach safety. Krill knew he had broken protocol, but for the first time, he felt a sense of purpose beyond duty. Afterward, Krill reviewed the humans' response. They had acted with calm and precision, even in the face of danger. They adapted quickly, using their intelligence and creativity to avoid disaster. Krill's log reflected a new understanding. Humans are strongest when they act for each other, not for themselves. Krill's internal conflict deepened as he spent more time with humanity's stories. He observed the impact of small actions. A soldier who shared his last ration with a comrade strengthened morale. A medic who risked his life to save a wounded civilian inspired hope. Even civilians displayed courage, children helping the injured, elders offering guidance and encouragement. Krill began to see that courage was contagious, that bravery inspired bravery. One evening, Krill observed Mara planning another critical mission. This time, a strategic human base was under threat from a larger Vorix force. Mara's plan relied on speed, precision, and a deep understanding of her squad's strengths. Krill saw the humans' creativity at work. They set traps using minimal resources, communicated silently through gestures, and improvised when unexpected obstacles arose. Krill felt admiration and unease. He knew his empire would see these actions as weaknesses to exploit. Yet to him, they were a testament to humanity's ingenuity. He realized that reporting their true capabilities could deter the Vorix, while falsifying weakness would endanger countless lives. The moral dilemma weighed heavily on him. Krill had been trained to obey, to prioritize orders above personal judgment. But the humans had taught him an unspoken lesson. Courage, loyalty, and moral choice could outweigh rules, even for someone like him. He questioned his role as a soldier. Was obedience more important than justice? Duty more important than morality? During another skirmish, Krill made another decision that tested his conscience. A squad of humans was surrounded by Vorix forces on a rocky plateau. Standard protocol would have called for observation only. Yet Krill could not watch them die without acting. Using his ship's cloaking and manipulation systems, he created a temporary diversion, redirecting the enemy forces just long enough for the humans to escape. Afterward, Krill analyzed the outcome. The humans had survived because of their courage and adaptability, but his intervention had been decisive. He added a note to his log. Sometimes even a single ally can tip the balance. Humans do not rely solely on luck. They rely on willpower, intelligence, and determination. Krill began interacting more subtly with humans in the field, carefully avoiding detection. He observed their behavior, noted their decision-making processes, and learned about their emotions: hope, fear, compassion, and determination. Each interaction reinforced what he had come to believe. Humans were remarkable, not for their strength or technology, but for their spirit. One particularly striking moment came when Krill witnessed a human soldier named Jalen confronting a moral choice. The soldier had an opportunity to eliminate a Vorix commander, a chance to gain a tactical advantage. But the commander had a wounded subordinate beside him. Jalen hesitated, then chose not to strike, allowing both enemies to escape. Krill's sensors recorded an emotional spike: respect, hesitation, and moral conviction. To humans, morality and honor mattered as much as victory. Krill noted this carefully. Humans value life beyond their own gain. This is an extraordinary trait. Krill's moral dilemma intensified as his superiors demanded constant updates. They sought weakness. He could only see strength. He began altering reports, emphasizing uncertainty and unpredictability rather than exposing humans' vulnerabilities. He described their actions as difficult to anticipate and highly adaptable, careful not to reveal admiration in formal reports. But privately, his logs became a testament to humanity's courage and ingenuity. As Krill watched from above, he understood that he faced a personal choice that would define his future. To continue following orders blindly would betray the species he had come to respect. To act on his admiration, to protect humans when he could, was a risk. Failure could mean death, or worse, punishment from the Sarnath Empire. Yet Krill's conscience could not ignore the truth he had seen. Humans were extraordinary. In a quiet moment, Krill reflected on everything he had witnessed: Mara's fearless leadership, the twins' ultimate sacrifice, Sarah's unwavering courage, Jalen's moral integrity, and countless acts of heroism by soldiers and civilians alike. He realized that humanity's strength was not in numbers, weapons, or technology. It was in spirit: the unyielding courage to face impossible odds, the loyalty to protect others, and the moral conviction to act rightly even under extreme pressure. The moral dilemma became a turning point. Krill decided that he could no longer be a passive observer. He would not betray humanity by reporting them as weak. Instead, he would act to protect them, in small ways at first, using his knowledge to save lives without revealing his presence. He began tracking Vorix movements carefully, anticipating attacks and subtly intervening. He guided human squads through dangerous terrain, suggested strategies through hidden signals, and even neutralized minor threats without detection. Each act reinforced his belief: humans were not merely survivors, they were heroes. Krill's admiration grew into a quiet loyalty, a commitment to stand by their side, even in secret. As days passed, Krill recorded detailed notes of human behavior, focusing on their ingenuity, courage, and selflessness. He realized that these traits were not just valuable for war, they were defining qualities of a species capable of greatness. Krill began to see a future where humans could thrive, not merely as soldiers or pawns, but as beings who inspired allies and even challenged empires through their unbreakable spirit. Krill's moral dilemma had transformed into purpose. He understood that his role was no longer simply to observe or report. His mission had become to protect, to witness, and to honor humanity's courage. Even if the Sarnath Empire demanded obedience, Krill knew he could not betray the species he had come to respect. As night fell over the battlefield, Krill hovered silently, reviewing his logs once more. He had recorded dozens of human stories, of sacrifice, ingenuity, courage, and moral choice. Each one reminded him that humans were capable of extraordinary feats, often when no one else believed they could. For the first time, Krill felt a sense of belonging not to his empire, but to the moral truth he had discovered. Courage, selflessness, and honor were worth more than obedience. Humanity had taught him that. Humanity had inspired him. And for the first time in his life, Krill wondered what it truly meant to fight not for orders, but for something greater, the preservation of hope, life, and the unyielding spirit of a remarkable species. The dawn broke slowly over the scarred planet. Krill hovered silently above the battlefield in his cloaked ship, watching the humans below. Their positions had shifted overnight, their defenses strengthened, and their soldiers moved with calm efficiency. Krill had seen countless acts of courage, but today something felt different. Today, humanity's spirit would be tested in a way he could never have predicted. The Sarnath Empire had launched a massive assault. Hundreds of Orcs ships appeared on the horizon, dark silhouettes against the rising sun. Their weapons fired in unison, targeting human fortifications. Yet even in the face of overwhelming odds, the humans did not falter. Krill watched, heart pounding, a strange sensation he had never known, knowing that the outcome would not depend solely on technology or firepower. It would depend on courage, unity, and ingenuity. Krill decided that he could no longer simply observe. He had secretly intervened before, guiding humans subtly through danger, but now the stakes were higher. If he continued to hide, countless lives would be lost. Krill made a choice. He would fight alongside them. He descended his ship closer to the battlefield, revealing his presence only to himself at first. Using his advanced Sarnath systems, he disrupted enemy targeting systems, creating small blind spots in the Orcs' attack formations. The humans noticed the gaps and exploited them, moving forward with bold maneuvers that Krill had not anticipated. Even he was impressed. Lieutenant Mara led the charge. She had grown into a natural leader, her squad acting with precision and courage. Krill observed her directing soldiers, coordinating reinforcements, and improvising under fire. Each order she gave inspired confidence, and every act of bravery by her team multiplied into waves of determination across the battlefield. Krill realized that their courage was contagious. The human spirit was a force that even his advanced sensors could not measure. Krill decided to make his presence known, but only to Mara. He projected a holographic image in a secure location, a form she could trust. Mara's eyes widened at the sight of the alien figure, but Krill's voice was calm. "I am Krill," he said. "I have watched your species. I no longer serve my empire in the same way. I wish to help you survive." Mara studied him carefully, her instincts honed by years of battle. "Why should we trust you?" she asked. Krill answered honestly. "Because I have seen what humans are capable of. I have seen bravery, ingenuity, and sacrifice. I have seen hope in the face of despair. I cannot let my empire destroy this spirit. I offer my knowledge and my technology to help you win." Mara considered his words. Then, with a nod, she said, "Then we fight together. But know this. We do not take orders. We act together." Krill smiled, a strange and unfamiliar gesture. He had never felt such a connection to any being before. For the first time, he was not a soldier following orders. He was an ally, standing with humans, united by a shared purpose. The battle began in earnest. Krill guided Mara and her forces through the chaos, showing them weak points in enemy formations and suggesting strategies that combined human creativity with Sarnath technology. Humans adapted quickly, using his advice to amplify their strengths. They rigged traps, improvised weapons, and coordinated attacks that turned the tide of small engagements. Every action reinforced Krill's belief. Humans were extraordinary. He watched a squad led by a young soldier, Jalen, take on a heavily armed Orcs unit. The humans were outnumbered, but they moved with precision, using terrain, ingenuity, and sheer courage. Jalen's team improvised, using debris to shield themselves and creating distractions to flank the enemy. Krill's sensors recorded the events, but even his calculations could not predict the humans' resilience. They prevailed, and the squad's victory became a rallying point for others nearby. Elsewhere, the twins Eli and Jonas's legacy inspired new generations of engineers. Young humans crafted makeshift drones and improvised explosives, learning from past sacrifices. Krill noted that the human ability to learn, adapt, and honor those who came before gave them an edge no amount of alien technology could replicate. The Orcs launched a massive strike against the main human base, aiming to break morale. Krill projected energy barriers at key points, shielding human defenses while remaining unseen by most of the soldiers. Mara coordinated counterattacks, turning the enemy's aggression against them. Even civilians contributed, providing supplies, guiding soldiers through safe paths, and assisting the wounded. Krill realized that humanity's strength was not in a few leaders or heroes, it was in the unity of the whole species. During the chaos, Krill encountered a group of trapped civilians. He guided them to safety, showing them how to navigate through debris and enemy fire. One young girl, no more than 10, clutched his hand and whispered, "Thank you." Krill felt an unfamiliar warmth. Protecting these humans was no longer just about duty. It was about belief in their spirit. As the battle progressed, Krill and Mara devised a plan to strike at the heart of the Orcs fleet. They targeted the command ship, the brain behind the enemy assault. Using a combination of human ingenuity and Krill's advanced technology, they infiltrated the ship. Humans improvised once again, creating distractions and setting charges in unexpected locations. Krill guided them silently, allowing their creativity and courage to take the lead. The climax came when Mara led a daring strike team onto the command ship. Enemy forces surrounded them, and defeat seemed inevitable. Yet the humans fought with relentless courage. Every action was precise, every movement calculated yet flexible, and every sacrifice meaningful. Krill used his abilities to neutralize the deadliest threats, but the humans' ingenuity carried the mission forward. Finally, the command ship's core was destabilized, and a massive explosion rocked the battlefield. The Orcs' fleet, leaderless and in chaos, faltered. Humans pressed their advantage, reclaiming territory and pushing the enemy back. Krill hovered above, observing their triumph. For the first time, he did not feel like an observer. He felt like part of something greater. After the battle, Krill walked among the humans, visible now, no longer cloaked. Soldiers paused, startled by his presence. Mara stepped forward. "You fought with us. You risked yourself for us," she said. "Why?" Krill answered simply, "Because I have seen what humans can do. I have seen courage, selflessness, and hope. I have seen heroes. I could not let that spirit be destroyed." The humans looked at him not as an alien, but as an ally. They accepted him, not because of his power or technology, but because of his choice to stand with them. Krill realized that heroism was not only in action, it was in moral choice, in loyalty, in belief in something greater than oneself. Krill became a chronicler of human heroism. He documented every act of courage, every sacrifice, every moment of ingenuity and compassion. His records would later serve not just as military intelligence, but as inspiration for generations of humans and even aliens who would hear of their deeds. In the weeks that followed, Krill helped humans rebuild, organize, and prepare for future challenges. He taught them to combine their creativity with technology, to trust their instincts, and to believe in their courage. Humans flourished under these lessons, but Krill always emphasized one thing. Their greatest strength was themselves, their spirit, their loyalty, and their unyielding determination. Krill often reflected on what he had learned. Humanity had taught him that true strength was not measured in weapons or power, but in the courage to act, the moral integrity to choose right over convenience, and the willingness to sacrifice for others. These lessons changed him. He was no longer just a soldier of the Sarnath Empire. He was a witness, a protector, and a believer in humanity. The final chapter of the battle saw Krill standing beside Mara on a ridge overlooking the reclaimed land. Smoke rose from distant fires, but the humans below moved with purpose, rebuilding, helping the wounded, and honoring those who had fallen. Krill felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Mara turned to him and said, "You've seen what we are. Now you know why we fight." Krill nodded. "I do, and I will never forget. You have shown me that courage, hope, and selflessness are stronger than any empire." As the sun set over the horizon, Krill recorded his final notes in his personal log. Humanity is extraordinary, not because of technology, not because of numbers, but because of heart, spirit, and courage. They fight for each other, they endure, they innovate, and they sacrifice. They are heroes. I have learned from them. I have fought beside them. I have witnessed what no empire can destroy, the unyielding spirit of humans. And with that, Krill looked out over the battlefield, not as a soldier, not as an observer, but as a witness to humanity's greatness. For the first time in his long life, he understood the true meaning of heroism. And he knew that, as long as humans endured, courage, hope, and honor would never die.